Hello, everyone. Welcome, all my musical minions, to the Forgotten OneCast. And I couldn't even talk today because that's just the way this night's going to go. I am your host, as always, CJP. And tonight we're going to do something a little bit different, not the one-on-one like we normally do. We're actually going to have a little bit of a panel tonight. And we're going to be ranking our top 5 Japanese role-playing games. So this is going to be a fun, lively conversation. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be some overlap and some surprises. But first, we do have to pay the bills here at the Forgotten OneCast, and I want to take a word from our affiliate sponsor, Coffee Brand Coffee.
Coffee, green tea. Coffee, green tea.
Coffee.
Coffee, green tea. Coffee, green tea.
Nuts.
Coffee.
Al Pilkington.
All right.
Green tea.
Are you team coffee or are you team green tea? Try coffeebrandcoffee.com and enjoy 10% off your order with promo code CJP. Coffee Brand Coffee, great coffee, no gimmicks.
And again, you can go to coffeebrandcoffee.com, promo code CJP, save you a little bit of the green. Well, now that that's out of the way, let's bring on our panelists for tonight. First, we have got from Master Sword Music, a returning guest, Mr. TeeJay The Gamer. How are we doing, sir?
Hey, everybody. What's up? It's your boy, TeeJay.
Awesome. And then next, another returning guest who's been on a couple of times, Mr. DJAxis.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
And again, another returning guest. We've got Melee K of Melee Games. Hey, Kay,
It's the return of the guests. I love it. We should have brought James on here to pretend he knew JRPGs and not had me on just to be funny, but I'm here.
Well, that would, he would be a good punching bag for that. So
He would have just been like Duke Nukem. That's it. Like the most random, obscure Call of Duty music. Why not? That's the best JRPG.
he's like Flappy Bird. That's my soundtrack. That's my jam.
The way it flaps.
Awesome. Well, and unfortunately, Gamersician could not make it tonight. He did have some last minute real life stuff that popped up. Nothing bad, just some real life scheduling conflicts, which it happens. We all have lives outside of the YouTube sphere, and we definitely want to definitely thank the chat also for being here. We had shown up 30 minutes early, Mr. Angry Canadian said, "Let's go." Mr. Thousand Star, I'm not sure if he's if they're confused or not. Master Sword hopping in, and Master Tulsa. It's on Donkey Kong's not an RPG, so Yeah, DJAxis hopping in the chat. Yeah, Melee. Gave me trouble. Does that count? I'm not sure about that one. Mr. Clinton House hopping in. You got Metastep. So everyone, thanks for. I think I got everyone that's been in the chat today so far. So awesome. Well, kind of setting up the rules for this. We're looking at specifically your standard turn-based old school JRPGs, Japanese role-playing games, if you aren't familiar with the lingo. So this would be your Dragon Quest, Final Fantasies, that type of genre. Of course, there's been many over the years, and some from Japan, some made in the States, and some made in other countries, I'm sure. But we definitely want to, just have some fun. No metastep. It's not a debate. This is all subjective. This is just the music that speaks to us, and what drives us to listen to it. Especially if you can listen to it outside of the game and be perfectly enjoying it. So,
Oh, yeah.
That's the good sign of a great soundtrack. If you can listen to it outside of the game and still enjoy it, then it's a great soundtrack. Oddly enough, Snake's Revenge is one for me. People have completely forgotten that game exists, I think, at this point.
It's got some great music, though.
Oh,
It really does, though. You ain't wrong.
So I actually wanted to take a break from Mega Man, so I was trying to finish up some of the ones I was working on for that one. It's obscure enough, I think that it'll go over well. So to start off this round, we're going to look at we're going to go backwards. We're going to go from 5 to 1. So, Mr. TJ, what's your number 5?
Okay, all right. Let me start this thing off. Number 5 is Breath of Fire 2 on the Super Nintendo. This is you'll notice a trend with my list, and as a lot of people may know, the Super Nintendo is my favorite console of all time. And the main reason for that was the sheer massive amount of JRPGs that were on that system. And Breath of Fire 2 is probably one of my favorites. And the music in this game is absolutely phenomenal. Like it, from the battle themes to the overworld themes, like everything just really connects that whole game together. And is one of those essential RPG games that like really got me into doing music at all, because like the music in this game I was so impressed with what they were able to do with this game musically, and like just on the Super Nintendo in general, like how were they able to get those kind of sounds to come out of that kind of a console was ridiculous to me. So Breath of Fire 2 was one of those first ones that just really hit home for me. And I've played that game several times at this point, and I still listen to the music of it pretty much all the time. Like that's some of my like working music when I'm at work and I just need something to keep me going. I'll put on some Breath of Fire 2 every time.
That's a good one. I've definitely remember playing that one quite a bit. The music from the first one kind of got annoying in certain.
Yeah, Breath of Fire. That's why I specifically said 2.
Yeah.
1 maybe not so much, but 2 they I think 1 they were trying to figure it out. 2 they kind of got it together. It's like, all right, there we go.
Yep. Well, Miss K, what's your number 5?
My number 5 changed pretty much as we were going live. I re-looked at my list and I was like, I can't not include this game. So I'm actually putting Earthbound in my number 5. It booted something else out that will be an honorable mention. What I love about Earthbound's soundtrack is it exudes the personality of the game within the soundtrack itself. You could show someone that soundtrack, they wouldn't even need to play the game. They'd be like, oh, these sounds are really quirky. Like, what's going on with that game? And then you show them the game and they're like, this makes complete sense. So yeah, I saw James mention Earthbound in the chat. I'm like, oh shit, that's going to have to boot out a game that I would have put in there because it's such a good soundtrack. And like you said, you can listen to this music outside of the game. It's even better. That's something you can go to the gym with. Like it's good. So definitely Earthbound.
I think at the last time I played that game, I named my character Pooh. And it made
Oh.
the dialogue so funny. The other one I love to do is I love to name my character like Dude or My Dude.
Oh yeah.
Every
yeah.
conversation's like super chill.
Say, hey, my dude.
I love putting swear words in name generators. Is whatever swear word I can kind of incorporate, I will.
See, you guys that do cool stuff. I'm boring. I just always put my own name in there.
I used to, like my first run, I don't know, when I was younger, I'd be like, okay, I want to feel like I'm the character, right? Like insert myself. Now I just like to troll when I play games. So I'm like, yeah, let's put, whatever word. I don't want to swear on CJP's channel. So
No, you're good. We're past 8 minutes in, so I think we're good.
yes. Fuck, shit, and ass. One of those has to be my name. Ass,
Well,
take out the master sword. There you go.
Leave it to Kay to be the first one who swears too.
Always, every single time.
Yep. So DJ, what's your number 5?
Okay. Kay's going to appreciate this because my number 5 is actually a Sega Genesis game. My number 5 is Phantasy Star 4. From the moment that game starts, from the moment you see that Sega logo, the music is just so incredibly good and very different for the style of JRPGs at the time. You know me, you know the kind of music I make. I'm all about the. There's so much of that in Phantasy Star 4. I absolutely love it. The reprised editions of Phantasy Star 1 music in there is just chef kiss. Just such a good soundtrack from the start to the end. It's all fitting. It's all thematic. It's just great. Such a wonderful use of the Sega Genesis sound chip, and that's not a common thing. Some people don't like how the Genesis sounds. I've always liked it, even as a kid. But that game, it really just nails home what the Sega was capable of, or what the Genesis was capable of. So that's my
DJ,
number
who
5.
doesn't like how the Genesis sounds? Because I'm gonna find them and talk to them.
I think one of them is in chat. He might run a business with you.
He might, yeah, exactly. He might also run a channel with me.
Yeah.
What's up, Insidious Bliss? How you
What
doing?
up?
Well, that's a good one. Like, like there are certain Genesis games where you can tell they didn't really care about the music,
or they just didn't know how to use that sound chip properly.
but like Sword of Vermilion's another one. I think they really did a great job
yes.
utilizing the chip in that game, and that's one of my honorable mentions. Is I do love that soundtrack as well.
Oh yeah, like I think the Sega Genesis as a whole gets a bad rap for sound, but it depends on the games. Like there are certain games that came on the Genesis that soundtracks are, even though it's not an RPG, like it's a game I really grew up hard on called Restar, and that soundtrack is a banger coming out of the Genesis. So I really think people give the Genesis more crap than it deserves.
Yeah, Streets of Rage 2 is another good example.
Yes,
that's
Streets
a good
of Rage
one.
2, Road Rash. Maximum Carnage.
Oh yes,
Just beautiful. So, anyways, I know we're not talking about that today, but I'm just saying
somebody
Genesis
must
sound.
be a Sega head, huh? Is that you?
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Well, for me, my number 5, I went with Dragon Quest XI, Definitive Edition on Switch. And the reason I went with that one is because not only is it fully orchestrated, so you can really just hear the richness of the songs, but they also orchestrated all of the songs for each of the old games that you have to go through and do side missions for in Tockletown. So you get to hear a left guard, from Dragon Quest 1, which Dragon Warrior for me, which was always my favorite overworld theme ever for any RPG. So that's why I went with 11, because it's the combination of all the great music over the history of Dragon Quest without being a compilation like Smash Brothers is.
Okay.
They still had quite a bit of original music. It was just, also had those additions to it. So it had all the great stuff I loved from the old games, plus all the new themes that they were doing.
Oh man, now you guys, I'm looking at my list and I'm like, man, I want to change some stuff now.
That was me. Literally, as the intro was going, I was like, damn it. There's too many. So now my honorable mention is just going to expand.
The biggest problem is narrowing it down to that top 5.
I'm sick now.
Well, then you're up again for number 4, Mr. TJ.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stick with my number 4 just because, but it's a PlayStation RPG known as Suikoden.
Yeah.
And the original, I'm talking about the original Suikoden, and that soundtrack is another one that is absolutely amazing. It's one of I'm trying to remember how I first got, because I played that game a long time ago, and I'm trying to remember how I managed to get my hands on it. But when the first time just the opening of Suikoden is just absolutely ridiculous. It gets you so amped to play the game, and then once you get in there, it's one of those soundtracks where like every single song, even like just the simplest going into a shop or just going from one place to another, every track goes way harder than it has any right to. And it's one of those ones that I just always find myself coming back to. Even if I haven't played the game in forever, I will always go back to the soundtrack. Funny enough, Suikoden probably is a game I've only probably played a couple of times here and there, but that soundtrack I've listened to probably a million times over and over and over again. And just the composition, the instrumentation, the deliveries, they pick like the perfect track for like every moment to make you like really get into that game. And I feel like Suikoden doesn't get the love it deserves, so I had to put it on there.
Do we know if the Aiden Chronicles soundtrack is good too? Because that's by the people that did Suikoden, right?
Yeah,
it's the same team.
It is the same team, and I think it's the same. I think it might be the same composer. If I remember,
that's what I'm curious. If it's,
I think it is, because Aiden Chronicles has an amazing soundtrack as well. It was all matter of fact. I was kind of those two were kind of battling each other for a while, but I went with Suikoden. But yeah, they also, that one also has an amazing soundtrack as well, and it is definitely a classic.
I'm sorry, but this is a drinking game that would kill me. You would shout every time Final Fantasy isn't mentioned. Well, you know it's going to be at some point.
Yeah. It's mentioned somewhere.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'd rather keep my liver intact.
I'm actually interested to see which ones get mentioned. That's my thing. I know it's going to come, but I'm wondering which one people are going to go with.
Yep. Well, Miss K, what's your number 4?
Final Fantasy X.
Well, You don't have to drink.
timing.
All right.
Exactly. I was like, I hope he asks me. I hope so. Final Fantasy X, I've spoken about this before, but when like the Xenarcan like theme hits, when you even like turn on the damn game, I feel like I want to cry just launching the game. How many games do that to you? Like, I'm like, oh god, there's a campfire. I hear the piano. Help me. Like, I'm already emotional and I haven't even pressed start yet. So, yeah, that to me, the soundtrack is just it's so powerful. And I think music is such a like integral part of a game, you know, like that can really change the tone of it and how like invested you can be. And I thought they did an excellent job with the Final Fantasy X soundtrack of just pulling you in to the point where you hear a few notes and you're like, oh God, I remember everything that happened. So yeah, Final Fantasy X for me. I know there's other Final Fantasies that have excellent soundtracks, but that's the one that really resonated with me the most. It's just how powerful it is.
Ooh. Oh man. Okay, hold on.
I keep thinking about it. It's just like, oh, I'm
So
getting
good. It's so good. I want to geek out, but I gotta wait.
Mr. Axis, what's your number 4?
Okay. Well, let me see here. Oh, all right. Yeah, I had to call an audible after hearing some of the lists mentioned, and I had to cycle some things around. But my number 4 is Dragon Quest VIII PS2,
That's a good one.
and it's it's kind of for the same reasons CJ picked Dragon Quest XI. But for me, 8 was like the first one to really have a fully orchestrated sound from the get-go. The game, and it's not only that, but it's also pretty much my favorite Dragon Quest period. It's in my opinion what I would recommend first to new players, but just everything about the soundtrack. It's Dragon Quest. You really know what you're getting into. It's the old reliable of JRPG soundtracks, and they play to that. They know what their fan base wants. It's, you know, you'll hear some familiar songs and you might hear some new ones every single time. It's just, you kind of know what you're getting into. Like Dragon Quest fans know what I'm talking about. It's just, it definitely deserved to be on the list somewhere. So that's my number 4.
So my question for you, DJ, is how many times have you partaken of the Puff Puff?
In every single Dragon Quest or just in 8?
Well, I mean, just in general with Dragon Quest.
Oh man. It's somewhere more than 5 and less than 20.
I'm still so confused. CJP tweeted at, you're gonna finally do the Puff Puff, and I was like, what does that mean? I don't understand.
I want you to experience it without knowing what it is going in beforehand.
Okay.
You have to experience it fresh.
And
Puff
sometimes
is better that way.
And sometimes it can be different depending on the game
What?
too. You never know.
What does this mean? Okay, so I've had 3 recommended to me primarily. People have recommended. I've never played Dragon Quest for context.
Mhm.
And I was asking recently, and people have said either play 1, 8, or 11. That's been the like most common denominator. I didn't even think about the soundtrack. It's just the gameplay looked good. So
Those are good recommendations for where to start.
8 or
11.
I say 8 and 11 are definitely.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with either one of those. I would say.
yeah.
3 is definitely also another one that
Yeah.
there's a great one to start with.
That's true.
Because Dragon Quest 1, you're gonna be there's no party. It's just you.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of grinding that goes on in Dragon Quest 1 to
Yeah.
be able to.
That kind of unsells me on it because the character design is so cool in those games. I want to see more characters.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest 1 as your first. If you've never played Dragon Quest, I would not say.
I'd start with either 3, 8, or 11
Mhm.
because those all have party options.
8 is on PS2. Am I remembering
That's correct. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. I probably will start at 8 because I need like a classic PS2 experience, you know?
I think
like
they released it
the
also on
RPG
3DS if
experience.
I remember right.
I'm not gonna play it on the 3DS. Imagine playing that portable. Like, come on, no.
If you're okay with fan translations, Kay, I would also say Dragon Quest 6 is amazingly good, and it's the last one on the Super Nintendo. The graphics are just graphics and presentation and music and that are spectacular.
Damn. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
It also-
I'm good with translations because Fire Emblem
Mhm.
6 I had to get
Yeah, exactly.
translated. So
6 also has the job system, and I really like how it's implemented in 6. So you might have fun with that too.
I've actually never played 6. I might have to check that out too.
It's real good.
We got a wild Hadouken. What's up, Paul? War Song, Languisher 2. Those are
Oh yeah, that is a good one.
those are definitely some deep pulls on those.
That's some deep cuts right there. I like that.
Well, my number 4 is not Final Fantasy,
Ah,
but it is Square. Enix.
okay, that's fair.
Octopath Traveler. There was just something about the way in each of those areas that is fantastic. Of course, anytime Primrose's theme comes on and my girls hear it, they start crying every time. Because they were watching me play that section of it and what happens in that section of that game. Yeah, they're like, yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Oh my God. Oh,
But again, it's just fully orchestrated. I'm always a fan of orchestrated soundtracks because, doing orchestras and symphonies and stuff, in college, you really those, and of course, growing up listening to movie soundtracks. John Williams really kicked off a lot of that for me back in the day. So I've got a ton of soundtracks as well as, video game OST. So anytime you get an orchestrated one, I'm going to salivate, and I'll probably end up like Mike Myers and Sprockets and SNL. I'm as happy as a little girl.
oh my God. Yeah.
Like if they would do, I could do a Chrono Trigger remaster if they did it in Octopath Traveler style.
I've said that a million times. I've said that so many times. I'm like, if you're not going to do it that way, then just don't do it. Just don't. But I think that would be the perfect way to bring back Chrono Trigger, is to do it in that 2D HD style. I think that would just, because if you try to go fully 3D with it, I don't think that's the way to go.
It'll lose all the charm.
Yeah, like it's not gonna hit. It's not gonna hit at all. Man, you guys are okay. All right.
That's the great thing about music. It's just one of those universal languages that brings people together, no matter where it comes from. That's what I love.
100%.
Well, Mr. TJ, I think we're up to round 3.
Yeah, round three. Fight! And I'm gonna make somebody happy today because my number 3 is Final Fantasy X. It is a lot of people get mad at me for this, but Final Fantasy X is actually my favorite Final Fantasy game in general. Like, I fell in love with Final Fantasy X from, like you said, when you hit that startup screen and that music, dun, 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 dun. It's just like from the very beginning, they just hit you with the music. And then Yuna's theme is absolutely a banger. The Xanarkand theme is a banger. The battle theme, that da, 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 da. Like, it's every song on there just gets you completely amped and hyped. And then when it gets sad, they know how to make you feel sad. Like they purposely prey on your emotions in that game. And I just absolutely love it. Like, Final Fantasy X is my favorite Final Fantasy game, and of course one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, because it really hits home. Like, that one is, I've played that game so many times and I've bought it so many times at this point. I think I still have the original, I have the HD remaster, I got it on Switch, I got it on Xbox. Like, it is that good, and I listen to the soundtrack all the time. I've done probably about 2 or 3 remixes from that game at this point. Yuna's theme being my favorite one, and like is not a whole lot that I could say about it that Melee didn't already say. But Final Fantasy X soundtrack is classic. You could put it on from beginning to end and just sit back and enjoy it.
It tells a story on its own.
Oh,
Right? Like,
it really
you can
does.
just set that soundtrack, and if you know a little context of the game, it almost tells the story back to you. That's what I
Yeah.
love.
It hits those moments. Like, every moment that happens, they play the absolute perfect song for that moment, just to, like, all right, this is sad, so let's hit them with that one. And then even like how they do even variations of it. Like, Yuna's theme has like 2 or 3 different variations, where there's like the happy version when something good is happening, but then when something sad happens, they play you that same theme, but they play it in a variation that makes it feel sad. So it's like, it even tugs at you almost, because you're used to hearing the song in the happy, joyous moment, but then when it gets sad, they hit you with that same tune and they just tweak it just enough to be like, oh, now it doesn't feel as good as it used to feel. And I love the way that they do that with that game. And Square as a whole, I think, is just they kill it a lot of the times with music.
Oh, Miss K, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is interesting because it's not actually a series that I've played much of, but it deserves a mention. I'm going with the Persona series in particular. I think Persona 5 has a really great soundtrack. What always stands out to me, besides the menu design of Persona, which is just fantastic too, is the music. There's a certain punchiness to that music. I'm not a musician like the rest of you, so I won't know the terms, but there's just a certain like essence to that music that is so fun and energetic. And every time I hear the music out in the wild, I'm like, I need to play these games. Like it feels so good. So I just love any music that comes out of Persona. I think it's got super good energy. It's one of the few soundtracks I'll listen to from a series that I don't really play much of. I think it's powerful, and I think it's innovated a little bit with like other JRPGs because you start to hear that in newer games since Persona came out. You start to hear that style of music come out in other people's work.
That's a solid choice. I don't think I've ever actually played a Persona game.
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, I like Persona like for what it is. I just haven't dive deep because they're really large games, right? It feels like you're kind of living a whole life through the game. And like the school system, I'm like, this is a lot. Like I need to really dedicate time. So it's something like I started playing 5 Royals or whatever. I was getting confused by the editions because there's like a bunch of editions.
It's like 15 different versions of the same game.
Yeah. And then I was like, there's like a dancing one, I think, or something. I don't even know. I'm not going to claim to know anything.
Yeah, I think they got a fighting game one. They got a tactical one.
There's so many. Yeah, like Tactica
does anybody
or something.
know? Oh, go ahead. Does anybody know? Because I know the same guys make Shin Megami Tensei, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the same composer or not? I'm not sure or not. Because I haven't played Persona, but I have played some of the Shin Megami Tensei games, and those also have amazing music as well. And I'm not sure if that's the same guys who do the music for that or not.
I don't think it's the same composer that does Persona, that does the S&T games.
Okay. I'm about to say, because the Shin Megami Tensei one is that when she said Persona, that's the first thing that popped in my head was Shin Megami. I'm like, man, I wish I would have put that on my list.
Mm-hmm.
Which Shin Megami Tensei does have a good soundtrack too. It's just for me, Persona really stands out because I think that music, it just makes you like want to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a special thing. It doesn't necessarily tell me anything about the game when I hear the music, but I'm just like, I need to play this game again.
Yeah, I need to give him more of a deep dive. I'm actually got a I want to say it's Persona 4. I have a remix coming up soon from Persona 4 that somebody requested. And I was like, man, dude, after listening to it and doing the remix of it, I was like, man, the music is pretty dope. I might actually need to see what the game is about.
Oh, Mr. Tetsu's copping in. What's up, buddy?
Oh, Katetsu, that's my bro. What's good?
Well, Mr. Access, you're up next for number 3.
All right. Well, it's another Final Fantasy, but it's not Final Fantasy X.
Oh, where we going?
My number 3 is Final Fantasy VI. Going back to that Super Nintendo, boy. Again,
that's a good pick.
From the moment you hit power on that cartridge and you hear like the organ with the Final Fantasy III logo, as I remember it, it's all good. It's all good. Probably the best work, in my opinion, that Nobuo Uematsu ever did was FF6. I don't think 7's soundtrack is quite as nice, and I know it's all subjective. I know everybody likes 10 too, but for me, that was it for me. Final Fantasy VI's music from start to end is just every music. It's all good. It's all thematic. It all fits nicely. The tense music, the battle music, it fits. It gets you pumped. The sad music, it really, it gives you the feels still. It's still good even now. Like, even like 30 some years later almost. It's still great. So that's my number 3. Easy pick.
Yeah, I actually 6 is another good. It is definitely a good pick, and it actually has my favorite version of the victory fanfare.
Yeah,
at the end of battles, 6 is actually my favorite rendition of that, and because you see a lot of notes. And matter of fact, if you really think about it, a lot of the music that's in 6, you can feel the influences of that in 10. Like 6 influenced, I think, a lot of the later versions of Final Fantasy. Like 7 takes a lot from 6, and 8 takes a lot from 6, and so 6 is definitely a solid choice, 100%.
Well, I'm going to go in a different route for my number 3 for a system not really known for its JRPGs, and that's Skies of Arcadia from Dreamcast.
Oh,
it's a good choice.
I absolutely choice. Now. you have to play it on Dreamcast. Do not play the GameCube version if you're wanting to hear the music, because for some reason, I don't know why they compressed it the way they did, why they mixed it the way they did, but the GameCube version of that is just. I mean, I love the new character and the side quests that they add to it, but if you want to hear the soundtrack, you play it on the Dreamcast. And just, for everything, because it's all set in the sky, just, how lofty they made it still sound with, just the MIDI instruments that they were using. It has a fantastic battle theme.
That's what I was about to say. The battle theme is one of my favorites.
And I love the ship battle theme too.
Yes.
It's very different because of how those battles are, because the ship battles are a lot more tactical than the your standard, personal battles. So they made the ship battle music a lot more tense. So there's not a lot of big fanfares in that, but it's all like the dun, 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 dun. It's just real low and real tense, and I love that idea. I love the dichotomy between the two battle systems.
That's a solid choice. I'm actually kind of sick now that I didn't think of that.
No, I had that reaction like, shit. That's
I'm kind of sick now because it has one of my favorite battle themes in an RPG ever. Like, I'm kind of sick right now.
But and it just stunk that the Dreamcast got so skunked in the US on JRPGs, because really all they had was that and Time Stalkers. You had Grandia too, but that's an action RPG. So really, that was the only three that you really had.
That's the funny thing. The GameCube was the one Nintendo console I actually missed out on growing up. I never owned a GameCube, and like, it's one of the ones I've definitely want. Like, that's if I ever start my collection up, that would be the one that I would do, because that's the only Nintendo console I ever missed out on. And it maybe was because of the JRPG things, because that's like what I love is the JRPG. So, but man, I gotta get on GameCube. The only GameCube game I ever really got to play was Soul Calibur 2, because it had my boy Link in it. I had to play it.
You're missing out. If you ever start going into GameCube, please bug me, because that to me is like probably my second favorite console of all time. Like it's amazing. So
they had great RPGs on there. I mean, you had
the
Tales series, Tales of Symphonia started. I was on there. The two Bite and Kaitos games, which are card based but still great RPGs in that respect.
I gotta get on it, man. I gotta get on. I feel bad I never got into the GameCube. I gotta do it.
Of course, my favorite on there is still Paper Mario 1000 Year Door, and I'm really looking forward to the remaster.
Yeah, I definitely can't wait to get my hands on that one.
Don't get K triggered about Tales for GameCube. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I go on long rants about stuff.
So now I know who to ask about GameCube stuff. That's good to know.
Yeah. Perhaps we'll talk about it in a little bit. How about that?
Okay. All right, she got something coming. All right.
Oh, geez. Well, now we're up to getting to the top there. We're really getting on the top there. So, Mr. TJ, what's your number 2?
All right, I'm going to make somebody else happy again, because this one is another one that was already mentioned. But my number 2 is actually Octopath Traveler. Skies of Arcadia, I said, is one of my favorite battle themes of all time, but my absolute favorite battle theme of all time is Octopath Traveler. Like, it is, I've never heard a battle theme that goes so hard that it just, I look forward to every single fight just so I can hear that music. That dun, 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 dun. Like, whoever was playing the piano on that completely went bonkers. Like, he just lost his mind in the middle of, so he forgot that he was making music for a video game, and he had a jam session in the middle of the game. Like, he just went ridiculous. And like you said, the orchestration of it, like, you can tell they really like that. You can literally get an orchestra on stage to play this music, because they really went full ham orchestra on it, like strings, horns, like just everything that we can throw at it, just throw it in there and we'll make it fit somehow. And you get Octopath Traveler's music, which is like, once again, just like Final Fantasy X, it hits those high moments, it hit those low moments. Like, Octopath Traveler really, as a whole, was just an amazing game, and it's such an homage to like those classic RPGs. Like, it's just like, if you played RPGs, like as I said, I'm a big Super Nintendo guy. So like, if you play any of those Super Nintendo RPGs, like Octopath Traveler is like definitely a game to try out if you ever loved any SNES RPGs, because they really nailed that aesthetic and they've made it feel modern. They upgraded the battle system, and they just went crazy ham with the music. And it's the main reason why I really think that Chrono Trigger should be done in a theme like that. But yeah, Octopath Traveler is my number 2, and I think it deserves all the love. And the funny thing is I've actually been playing Octopath Traveler 2, and I think that is actually one of the weak points of Octopath Traveler 2 is that the music didn't go quite as hard as it did in Octopath. And I was playing Octopath Traveler 2 for a while, and I was just like, something about this game just isn't getting me like the first one did. And then after I thought about it and analyzed it for a while, it was the music. Like they try to take some of the tunes and remix it and kind of like flip it, but I'm like, it just didn't hit me the same way that Octopath Traveler 1's music did. And I don't think they ever will be able to hit that kind of high again with that series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know why Square Enix doesn't do that with Chrono Trigger, because I mean that's just leaving money on the table. It's like, why won't Sega ever re-release Skies of Arcadia? There are hundreds of thousands of people who'd be like, money, give me money. Here it is.
I would buy it day one. That would be a day one for me. Easy.
Multi-million-dollar companies not knowing how to manage their IPs. This is shocking. I've never heard of this.
Exactly. I never heard of that before. Yeah.
This is like, wow, my mind's blown. No, there's so many games. I mean, I yell at Nintendo all the time for this too, right? Like Nintendo, Sega, all these companies. We all know as gamers, there are little things in their back pocket that they could pull out to save their company. They don't do it. Why? I don't know. There has to be a reason.
Don't even get me started, Capcom.
Oh God, yeah, no, we could go.
Capcoms are the kings of that. They have so many franchises they have just left on the back burner. And I'm like, please, what are you doing? Why do I not have another Darkstalkers game yet?
I was just about to say, if you didn't say Darkstalkers, I would have.
I want a new Darkstalkers game so bad.
Just make it happen, Capcom, please.
Just do it.
Well, Miss K, you're up for number 2.
Oh, this was tough. This was really tough.
Please.
My number 2 could be my number 1, and my number 1 could be my number 2. That's where I'm at currently. I have a feeling that a few people will know if they know me. Fire Emblem is my number 2. Mm-hmm. I think the Fire Emblem soundtrack is amazing. It is so good. The recruitment music, best recruitment music in any game ever, in my opinion. Together We Ride, on loop forever. I love that song so much. It gets you pumped. You're like, we're gonna like defeat the world together. Like, come hang out with me. That's how I feel every time I hear that music. I'm like, let's fucking go. So yes, Fire Emblem, just it hits all the perfect tones. I wouldn't even say like Fire Emblem 7 is my favorite Fire Emblem, which is the first one that came to North America. But I would even say Fire Emblem 8 soundtrack might even be my favorite. There's a lot of really good tunes in that as well. Even going into the newer ones, even if I don't like the newest games, like the Switch ones, I'm not a huge fan of. I like the soundtrack in them. I still think they carry a lot of that energy forward. So for me, Fire Emblem in every single tone. I mean, it's a soundtrack that I could literally play that game in silence, which it was a Game Boy Advance game. So some of us, you know, we might have had our thing on mute while we're out in the go and we're just playing our games on the Game Boy. That soundtrack I had on silent sometimes, and it still stood out to me. And I could hear the music in my head as I was playing that game because it just stood out that much. So and even like the combat music, I could just go on forever. I could do a whole stream just on the Fire Emblem music alone. It is fantastic. Highly recommend if people have not heard it.
See, now you going. All right. So since you're a big Fire Emblem head, then this is a question I've been asking, because Fire Emblem is a series that I've been wanting to get into, but I have not had the opportunity to try it. What would you say is the best Fire Emblem game to get started on for somebody who's never played it?
It's tough because there's a few. It depends like how revamped you want the combat to be. I mean, for me, I guess my bias would be I would say Fire Emblem 7 is the best way to start personally. I think it's a really easy one to jump into. As Angry Canadian said, I agree with Awakening is also a really good one. Awakening, they put every effort in possible. They thought they might go into bankruptcy, so they really tried to make sure that was a good game. So Awakening is also really good if you want an easy introduction. 7 has a really like good tutorial for the first few chapters, so it like gets you in that pretty easily, and the story is really easy to understand. Like you don't have to think too hard on it. Fire Emblem 8, I would say, is the easiest one in the series, but there's some more complex things, and you can do branching paths a little bit and stuff like that, more character classes and stuff like that. So I would say any of the Game Boy Advance ones, you're safe to start with. And then after you've done those, then I would go into the GameCube and Wii, or you can do Awakening. I think most people's answer would be Awakening, but my thing with Awakening is that it is a really good starter game, but it's even better if you've played some other games, because of the amount of fan service they put into Awakening. You'll appreciate it so much more after playing at least one other game. So I would say start with 7 or 8 as your safest bet.
Okay. All right, good. Because the way you talked up that soundtrack, now I want to play it. So I've been wanting to, because I've done some stuff with Fire Emblem tracks from Request before, but I've never got a chance to like really dive into one. So I think 7 might be the way to go.
And super easy to pick up and put down, because it'll just save your spot no matter where you are, even if you just shut down your system, whatever. It's all turns, right? So you can be like, I'm going to play a little bit of this, come back to it in like 2 or 3 weeks. It'll just keep you exactly where you are. And the chapters are broken up pretty easily. So like story-wise, it's not like you're going to forget, oh, what was I doing here? Like once you get into the map, you know, okay, I just got to do the mission of this map, and then it'll tell me more story, and I'll be caught up again.
Okay.
Well, Mr. DJ, you're up for number 2.
Okay. So my number 2 is actually a sequel of something that was already mentioned earlier. And I don't know if TJ will appreciate this one as much, but everything he said about Suikoden 1, my number 2 is Suikoden 2. Super good soundtrack. And if Gamersician would hear, he would already be hyping this up, because I know my man loves that game. Great music. There's so much of it too. Like, and even the stuff that's reprised from the first game is done faithfully. Like when you hear Greg Minster's theme in 2,
so good.
It hits so good. It hits
really
just
does.
right. But just everything about that game, the presentation of the music, and how it just sets every single every single theme of location or set piece, from like tragic to tense or happy. It all just fits so incredibly well. I mean, it's hard to find a Suikoden game with bad music, honestly, especially the old ones.
They all hit, man. Every single one
do.
of them hit. They really do.
Yeah. It's just an easy pick. It was so hard to pick between 1 and 2, honestly. But I was like, I've actually remember back in the day in the early 2000s, I would catch myself playing the soundtrack for 2 just like on repeat, not even playing the game, just listening to the music. And I mean, I did that with the first game too, but I think the second one just barely beat it out for me.
Oh yeah. Like I think I chose number 1 simply because of nostalgia. Honestly, it was the first one I ever played, and it was the first one that introduced me to Suikoden as a whole. So I think nostalgia was the thing that kind of nudged me to pick 1 over 2. But 2 is definitely. I mean, if I take the nostalgia out of it, number 2 is probably just as good as number 1. Like they're both ridiculously good.
I mean, honestly, they're interchangeable for me. I just went with 2 because 2 has a bigger soundtrack and it has some stuff from the first game. But really, they're both just as good.
Man.
Well, for my number 2, I'm going with one that has been mentioned already, but for me, number 2 is Final Fantasy VI.
That's what I'm talking about.
Terra's theme, just when you first hear that opening, that it just kind of slowly comes in. And you're just like, oh, we're in for a fun adventure.
It's time to go. And then
even the whole opera sequence.
That's what I was about to bring up. I was about to say the scene of Final Fantasy VI. That opera. Oh, they went ham. Like they stole the whole show with that one.
But yeah, I from beginning to end, I can put 6 on and just be thrilled with what I'm listening to. It still takes you on that journey from beginning to end, and there's not a track on there that I'm just like, meh. There are some RPGs that have great soundtracks, but there are some duds in the listing. But 6 is one that I can from beginning to end have no problems listening to and enjoying it all the way through. It was such a great soundtrack. So this way, we're gonna do before we hit our number 1s. we go around the horn and hit some honorable mentions.
Okay.
So we're gonna go in reverse order this time. I'm actually gonna start mine.
Okay.
And then we'll go back around again when we go for number one. But for me, some of my honorable mentions is, and this is gonna be a weird one, Final Fantasy Legend on the Game Boy, or what was called Saga in Japan.
Saga,
Yeah.
And it's a quite funny story to why. One reason I love that game so much is for years I had it saved right at the final boss. So I just go back in, every time and just kill him. So then I could hear the ending credit music, which was just for a tiny Game Boy game that's not really song should not be as good as it is. The problem was I let an ex-fiance borrow the system when I was in college.
Oh boy.
And she let the boyfriend that she was cheating on me with play it, and he game. Like that actually hurt me more than the cheating part.
Like, at least give me my game back, man. Come on now.
Well, I got it all back, but I'm like, now I've got to go back through and rebeat the game so I can get back to where I was.
She was unfaithful to you and your video game.
Exactly. That's
not cool. Not cool.
Yeah.
She was just a bitch.
He said it, not me.
Well, James,
I was thinking it, but I didn't say it. But he said it.
I can point her out to you. You can just go to town.
Like, there you go.
Some of the other ones I had, Super Mario RPG.
It's a solid choice.
Great soundtrack, especially the remaster that they did with the new version that came out. It's top notch.
Oh my god, the remaster is so good.
Another one that I wanted to put on my list is technically not from Japan, but it is a traditional JRPG. But just came out this last year, Sea of Stars.
Everybody, I gotta play this game. I gotta play it.
It's the closest I've seen to a Chrono Trigger style game in a while. That's not Chrono Trigger, obviously, but it's a fantastic game. Great story, great graphics, and a killer soundtrack.
I gotta play this. Everybody, I've so many people have brought up that game to me recently. I'm like, it's fate. It's fate is telling me I need to play this game.
You should absolutely play Sea of Stars. What's interesting is the soundtrack is not the thing I would say is strong about it. Personally, I got pretty exhausted by the soundtrack. I was like, I'm just going to play this game on mute. And that's like not something I do frequently with modern gaming. But the gameplay itself is great. For anyone that's also a Super Mario RPG fan, it does have a little bit of that like feel to it as well. So I've been recommending that to people who have been playing the like new version of Mario RPG. I think it's really good. But it's interesting that you held on to the soundtrack, and I should like it because it's iconic people working on that soundtrack. But it felt like it was trying to replicate old school to me. It didn't feel old school. That was my problem.
And then my final one for my honorable mentions, and this is a deep pull from PS1, the Grand Stream Saga.
Grand Stream.
It's a very obscure JRPG that's on the PlayStation 1. Very obscure.
Oh man, you got me on that one. I'm usually pretty up on my RPGs, but you got me on that one. And PS1?
Yep.
Yeah.
I am not familiar with that one. You got me.
I think that was like the second or third game I bought for when I finally got a PS1.
And see, I'm about to look this up. Hold on.
James, the chat.
The chat. I've been reading the chat this whole time, and they have been going in this entire time.
They're the ones that wanted to have the drag down fight. I just wanted to be nice and amicable. And
they've been in there going in. Like I've been reading you, and it has been a treat.
DJ, what are your honorable mentions?
Okay, before I get to my honorable mentions, I have a hill I'm going to die on regarding Final Fantasy VI, and compared to Final Fantasy VII. But you mentioned like boss musics or something, and I was going to jump in and say, I'm sorry, but Dancing Mad is a better final boss music than One Winged Angel. I'm going to die on that hill, and I don't care.
I agree with you.
I actually don't disagree. I think One Winged Angel it's a great song. Don't get me wrong. It is a great song. But I think, okay, here we go. I think Final Fantasy VII is very, very overrated.
Yes, I
Yes.
agree. I agree.
It was very iconic for the series, and I understood that it brought a lot of casual people into RPGs, and I respect it for what it did. And it's a great game. I love the story. Everything's amazing about that game, but it is not. And people get mad at me when I say this. I don't even put Final Fantasy VII in my top 5 Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great, but it's not necessarily my favorite. Like I said, 10 is definitely without a doubt my favorite. But I have several other Final Fantasy games that I would put above 7.
Exactly.
Just in my personal taste. And I think that One Winged Angel is a great song, but it is not the best boss battle theme.
God damn it, James.
Not even just in Final Fantasy is not the best, but when you
He's
compare it to
technically
other
played it.
RPGs, it's not.
Yeah,
But I hate
Sorry,
it.
we're having an unrelated battle in
Yeah.
the comments. The
I
only
know.
Final
I'm telling you,
Fantasy-
Dave, I'm telling you. If you read the chat, they are going.
But yeah, like regarding music and story, I think Final Fantasy VI is just a better game than 7. But I'm not saying 7 is a bad game. It's just ridiculously overrated compared to the other entries in the series.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the chat.
no, she did not.
Yeah.
Justice for Aerith. Come on.
He's only played the remake, like the first game in the remake, and she is actually really annoying in the new version. Not so much in the original, but he's never played it because he doesn't like turn-based stuff. So I'm not letting him play the original. I made him play this one, like the new one.
Gotcha.
But he's never played a Final Fantasy, so that's where this comes from.
What else you
Sephiroth. I will say that Sephiroth is one of my favorite bosses now. I will say that. He is one of my favorite villains. I think they could have went a little harder with his theme. I think they could have I think they didn't give him the theme that he deserved.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that.
Exactly. Okay. So
Do you
some
have
of
a
my
good episode,
honorable
DJ?
so my honorable mentions, I put Persona 3 FES because I never played Persona 4, or I never played 4 enough to really rank it, and I haven't played 5 yet. I know 5's music is phenomenal, but I've never played that. And I've played some of the SMT games like Nocturne, but I don't think Nocturne's music is as good as Persona 3. Persona 3 admittedly is like the Flash. It's basically like what you recommend to your non-SMT friends when you're like, here's a Shin Megami Tensei game that's like, it's all flashy and it's perfect for new players. You give them a Persona game. SMT is like, for the try-hard sweats that want to play an SMT game. It's like what true gentlemen play, but Persona definitely has the better soundtrack. Some other ones, Super Mario RPG, already mentioned, fantastic soundtrack. Chrono Cross, not Chrono Trigger, but Chrono Cross. I absolutely hate the game, but I love the music. No one ever said that any of the games on this list have to be games I like. I don't like Chrono Cross. I don't care what anybody says. I don't like it. Another one, Xenogears, fantastic music. But then again, just about anything from Square Enix in that PS1 era is just phenomenal music. They just hit their stride and they just kept on going. And speaking of which, a few more games from that era. Final Fantasy Tactics, I absolutely love the soundtrack. I love the game. I want to play it again on stream, and I probably will. Saga Frontier 1, really, really good, often overlooked PS1 game. Some amazing music. Some of the boss musics in Saga Frontier, like when you fight like the chapter end bosses, go incredibly hard, like harder than a final boss music should ever go. But it's really good. I'm still not done like simping for Squaresoft. I'm so sorry. Secret of Evermore. I actually love the soundtrack.
Bruh.
So overlooked. There's not much music in the game, but the music that's in Evermore is just it's so good. It's so good. I never knew this at the time, but Jeremy Soule actually composed that. The same guy who went on to compose for Guild Wars 2 and Skyrim. In fact.
Actually, the only reason I did not pick Secret of Evermore because I was like, that's technically action, I guess.
Yeah, it's only because it's an action RPG or what would have made my top 5. That game is so overlooked. It's so slept on.
Yeah, but it's Secret of Evermore is I love that game. I absolutely love that game. Matter of fact, that's pretty much what my honorable mentions are going to be, is games that don't quite fit the category, basically.
Yeah, I feel you. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. It's, again, most people don't think it's a good game, but the music in that game is so different to what you would expect from something called Final Fantasy. It mixes like symphonic stuff and rock. And that battle music, all
It's
of the battle
super
music in
hard.
that game, it just goes so hard. It's so amazingly good. And then the last thing is pretty much any of the Ys games, or really just Falcom in general as a company, like the Trails games or the Ys games as a series, Xanadu, all those games, amazing music, just great stuff all around. And that's it for my honorable mentions.
Well, Miss K,
Chef's
it's
kiss.
your turn.
Ooh, okay. Let me start with the one that was going to be in my number 5, and then didn't end up being in it. And like DJ said, we never said it had to be games that we enjoyed. Now,
Mhm.
this is a game I actually don't like at all, to the point where I almost hate it, but I don't. Kingdom Hearts. Simple and
Mm.
Clean goes hard.
They
Just
do got some
Simple
music.
and Clean alone, I'm like, this is like one of the best songs in like a JRPG. So Kingdom Hearts will be in there. Final Fantasy X-2. I love that game. 10 beat it out for me. It was between 10 and 10-2. But Real Emotion, 1,000 Words. I think it's like
Yeah.
Memories of Waves in the Light. I want to say
Yeah.
that's like
Mhm.
the
Yep,
title screen song. Even that goes hard. I'm like, this is for the title screen, and
The
this is
opening
great.
theme with the opening thing that Yuna does is, oh my god, that opening scene, music wise, is
Oh
bad.
my god, it's so good. I'm like, this is Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, like early 2000s. I don't care. I'm having a great time. That
Yeah,
soundtrack.
they went straight pop on that thing. I was like, okay, I
So
see what
good.
y'all doing. I see what y'all doing here.
It's so polar opposite to 10 with the music. Like the reasons I love it. I love 10's music because it makes me want to cry. I love 10-2's music because I want to just have a dance party. Like it's just so cool. So I love 10-2. Another one I will mention is Eternal Sonata. So that is a 360 game. Bandai Namco was the publisher, I believe. And I think it's Tri Crescendo is the people that actually made the game. So literally named after music. Eternal Sonata is literally just a music JRPG. It follows a classical composer. I think his name is Chopin. I can't remember his name.
Chopping.
Chopin. Yeah. And so it follows him, and everything in the game is all like music terms. Every character is named after a different kind of like instrument. Like there's like viola and all this kind of stuff. So I felt like that needed an honorable mention just on the premise of it's literally a music JRPG.
Yeah, it really is.
Super cool.
You know, that game is actually based on some supposed dreams that he had on his deathbed. Like he
died of tuberculosis, right?
Yes, and these were like based on dreams he was having as he was passing away, and they took those dreams and like kind of changed it into a game. And yeah, it's actually based on his actual compositions and music and stuff. So it's really dope. It's really dope. Actually, I'm sick because I didn't think about that one. But yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's actually a really good game. It's a very underrated game. Not a lot of people talk about it because it was in that like era of there was just so much good at the time, and it wasn't like the most.
It definitely came out at the wrong time.
Yeah, but it stands out to me. It is a decent game. And like I said, we're talking about JRPG music. I had to mention it. It's literally surrounded by it. That's the whole premise of it.
Big facts.
That's it for me. Because the other ones have been mentioned. Super Mario RPG. All that's
Yeah.
Well, Mr. TeeJay, it's your turn.
All right. So the ones from my list are ones that are like technically not turn-based RPGs, so I couldn't put them on there. But the first one I want to bring up is Terranigma. Terranigma is such a good soundtrack, such a good game. It's technically action, but it's from, once again, like I said, you're going to notice a pattern in my list. I love the Super Nintendo. It's another Super Nintendo RPG. And it has a ridiculously banging soundtrack. And it's just, if you haven't played it, you need to play it. I'm leaving it at that. This other one is kind of a deep cut. I'm not sure how many people are going to know about this one, but another one is Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals.
That's a good one.
That's also
I should have listed that one. Damn.
Yeah, that one was super close for me. That one almost was my number 5. But I had to move some stuff around to make it work. Somebody actually mentioned one of the other ones in the chat was Lunar the Silver Star. That's another one that I was thinking about, and I was like, boom. Illusion of Once, like I said, Illusion of Gaia, another
Yep.
Super Nintendo RPG.
Yeah.
Illusion of Gaia is another one. Secret of Evermore was already mentioned. And let's see. So, yeah, another one is Secret of Mana.
It's a good one. Too.
Specifically, Secret of Mana 3. So cool.
Seiken Densetsu 3.
There you go. I can never say
Yeah.
it right, but that one.
Yeah.
That was it was actually remade. It was the what was it, Trials of Mana?
Trials of Mana. That's the one.
Trials of Mana. It was on the Switch. Is actually a remake of Soku Sendetsu 3. And that one has an amazing. That one was another one that was pretty close for me as well. And that one has an amazing soundtrack. You are welcome, Tobat. But yeah, those are some of my honorable mentions.
Awesome.
I want to add two. I want to add two more honorable mentions before we go on, because TJ mentioned 2 of the 3 Blazer trilogy games. So I'm just going to throw Soul Blazer in there since you already mentioned Illusion of Gaia and Terra Enigma.
Yeah.
And another one that I completely slept on, the Star Ocean games, have really, really good music.
Oh, dude! Oh my God! Star Ocean till the end of time.
Yeah, I
Oh my
completely.
goodness!
I thought
So
about
good.
it. I thought about it 2/3 of the way through this, and I'm just like, why for the love of God did I not put Star Ocean on there? So I was like, okay, I have to interrupt the show and be like, I'm gonna let you finish, but first Star Ocean. Okay, I'm done.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, bro. I cannot believe I've left out Star Ocean.
Yeah.
Star Ocean till the end of time is one of my favorite Star Ocean games, first of all. And Star Ocean till the end of time soundtrack is ridiculous. Oh, I'm so mad at myself. That actually probably would have been in my top 5. I probably would have swapped something into my top 5 for that one because I love Star Ocean, and it doesn't. People know about Star Ocean, but it does not get the love it needs. Man, Star Ocean is a dope RPG series. Until the end of time was like the one that really got. That was the one that made me be like, I need to see what's up with this whole Star Ocean thing because that game is phenomenal.
All right. Well, it's time for the top, the cream of the. Or is that how did he put it? The cream of the crop. The cream of the crop. Oh, yeah. Coffee. So yes, it's time for our number 1 picks. And I'm gonna bet there's some overlap here.
Probably.
Just as a guess.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start with this one. And of course it is the granddaddy of all JRPG soundtracks for me, and that's Chrono Trigger. Every piece of music in that game is phenomenal. I mean, just from the opening when you're at the fair, and then the crisis music hits, and then you end up in the past, and just everything. Frog's theme, Magnus's theme. Just there's so much great music in that game, and everything has its own real space, because you can tell by the music where you're at in the world, like what kind of place you're in. Even if you don't know the game and don't know where that place is, you kind of configure where in the game that you're at. So that's my number 1, Chrono Trigger.
And I am not mad at you at all because I 100% agree. It is Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger's soundtrack is like the standard that I compare other soundtracks to. Like when I compare like how good is this soundtrack compared to another one, Chrono Trigger is the first one that comes to my mind. In my opinion, and I will fight, this is a hill that I will die and stand on, is that Chrono Trigger's soundtrack is absolutely flawless. Like there is not one song on this soundtrack that is not good. Every song on here is an absolute banger from beginning to end. It's a game that I've played so many times to this point that I can tell you exactly every song in the game.
Yeah.
Menus, everything, like the shop theme, just the sound effects. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Every song in there is absolutely perfect. I think it is the perfect soundtrack. I actually have the physical copy of the soundtrack from the original release that my wife actually got me as a gift because she knows how much I love the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, that she actually got me the CD soundtrack, the original one that came out when the SNES version of it came out. And to this day, it is like my absolute epitome of what a soundtrack should be in a video game. And I have not seen any other video game that's ever really like been able to match that complete flawlessness of a soundtrack.
Well,
And
Melee,
I'm gonna leave it at that.
what do you got for your number one?
It's
Are you
not
not-
Chrono Trigger.
Well, then you're wrong, okay?
I know, right?
Combo
I
broken.
like I said, to me, out of any top 5 I've ever done, this feels the most subjective ever. And this is why I said put a pin in the earlier conversation. Okay. Chrono Trigger is a good soundtrack. Don't get me wrong. It deserves to be in every top 5. But I'm going with Tales of Symphonia. I have to. That's my favorite JRPG, and that is my favorite soundtrack. It is so good. We do a show on our channel called Melee Town Square, and in one of them, I dropped a Tales of Symphonia song in it, and everyone in chat was like, "What is this song? It sounds so good. I've never heard this song before." For those of you wondering, go look up Fatalize. Powerful song. It sounds so good. So good. I don't know. I can go on forever about Symphonia, but TLDR, it's a great soundtrack. They crafted everything. There's 2 worlds in Symphonia. They crafted everything really well in one world versus the other. The energies match what the energies should be at the time in those worlds. And as the like power dynamic flips, the music also flips with it. I think the music plays in super well. I like that there's multiple battle themes. Each battle theme makes sense. You have stories where characters will gradually be your friend or foe, and as that happens, the music will radically change with them as well. I think it's perfectly crafted. I love Symphonia's soundtrack. It is the best Tales soundtrack. It is one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard, bar none. And to go back to that earlier comment where Canadian said, "Don't get Kay started about Tales on GameCube." If you ever play this game, do not play it on Steam. Do not play it on any modern consoles. Do not even play it on the PS3. You have to play the GameCube version. It is the only version that runs in 60 FPS. No other version does. And every other version that they've tried to port going forward breaks everything. It breaks the music. It breaks the way that the world moves. Like, there's literally places in the world where like it will break the game and freeze in the new versions. Don't play the ports. Play the GameCube version.
I think that's where what my problem is that I actually tried to play Tales Symphonia, and I played I think it was the Xbox version remake or whatever.
Oh God, just throw it out. Literally just garbage can. No. So, here's the thing that happened. I don't want to take over the show with this. You can come bug me anytime to hear more. But essentially, the PS2 version had like an extra boss and like some other like few extra dialogues. It's like an 80-hour game. Like, it's a pretty large game. So the GameCube version, the one that we got in North America, did not have some of that stuff. So going forward, porting, the next port was to the PS3. And so the PS3 version took the PS2 version, obvious reasons, Sony to Sony, but then also it has all the extra content. So then from there, they just kept moving that version, but the PS2 version was not as well optimized as the GameCube version. Pretty much the only version, like the only place you can find the GameCube version is on the GameCube, and that's the one that runs the best. And the port has just gotten worse as it goes. So
I definitely
go get a
agree,
GameCube.
boy, when I played that Xbox version, I was like, I don't know about this game. I don't know about this game.
No, it can completely ruin that game for you playing it on any other system because they just did a terrible job. Definitely and you can get the game pretty cheap now. It's like I think $30 on the GameCube in Canada, which is pretty good for a JRPG. And it's a 2-disc 80-hour game. It's really worth it. So excellent soundtrack on it. And just all over my favorite JRPG of all time.
Respect.
All right, well, Mr. JJ, you've got the final say.
Now that Kay's done talking about Tales of Symphonia, let's bring it back to Chrono Trigger. That's my number one.
That's my guy.
Because of course it is. Of course it is. Chrono Trigger, number 1. I completely agree with what CJP said and with TJ. This soundtrack is flawless. Perfect soundtrack. Is never been done until this day, and has never been done since. Just, you cannot hear Chrono's theme and not get hyped. You cannot hear Magus's theme and not get hype. And you cannot hear the second Lavos boss music and not get hype. That boss music just tears everything else up. I'm sorry. It's probably the best. Like the final version is okay too, like the final form of Lavos, but that second form's music just hits so incredibly hard. I'm like, this is probably the greatest boss music I ever heard. The Black Omen, great music. Just Corridors of Time is probably like my favorite song from that entire soundtrack. It just
the Force theme, like that very oh my god.
Zeal's theme,
just
Elvis's
Zeal's
Elvis
theme.
right there.
The
Zeal's
Ocean
theme is
Palace, just it's so
Everything.
good. Just
Zeal
everything.
theme. Yeah, somebody said it's Zeal theme. Yeah,
just it's so hard.
Shala's theme.
Yeah,
what? You gonna tell me Shala's theme doesn't bang? Like, are you serious? Nah, come on, man.
Yeah, and even some of the lower key tracks in that they still sound pretty good, like the Factory theme with that bass.
Every single one, like it's got that dark, foreboding feel to it.
Yeah,
like when you do that, when you go into the one where the people are hungry at, and you have to go down there and try to find the food.
Yeah,
the theme that plays in there is just like it just makes you feel like, man, this world is really effed up. Like this is really what's going on right now. Like
in one of my
don't get me started talking about Chrono Trigger's OST, just like Melee K. Don't get me started talking about Chrono Trigger because oh my god.
One of my tracks on Electronic Noise 2, I actually ripped that bass line from the factory. That doo 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 doo. Such a great bass line.
Yeah.
Such a great bass line. Well, everyone, I wanted to thank you all for coming on. I just wanted to have a fun, light conversation. And maybe introduce some soundtracks that people hadn't heard before, because there's a couple that you guys have talked about that I'm definitely gonna have to go look up and check out.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to check out some Fire Emblem now. Yep. Somebody spoke it up real good, so I got to try it now.
Well, if you guys want to go around the horn and just kind of let people know where they can find you, what you got projects coming up, and of course everyone's descriptions, everyone's contact is in the description below, so go like, subscribe, and check out these wonderful creators, and definitely have some fun. So we'll start reverse order. DJ, what you got coming up?
I can't think of anything like special events coming up, but I mean, if you don't know me, I'm DJAxis. I make original music and retro remixes. I've been around a long time. Used to be on Screw Attack back in 2007. I've been a music producer for 20 years now, 24 years. But I also live stream on YouTube, and I also live stream on Twitch as the name Seth the Dragon _, and that's what I'm up to. That's what I do.
Okay. Thank you for hopping on, DJ. It's always a blast to have you on.
Yeah, no problem.
Miss K.
Hello, I am Melee K, one half of Melee Games. As you saw, James was also in chat today. He's pretty much the fifth member of the show. Where you can find me, well, we're going to be live with the Melee Madness podcast directly after this, so go to the Melee Games channel. You'll see us live within probably the next 30-ish minutes. Find me there.
Awesome. Well, Mr. TeeJay.
Hi, I am TeeJay The Gamer, and my channel is called Master Sword Music, and I make music for gamers. I do remixes of classic video games. I also do my own original music that is based around video games and video game themes. So you can check me out on YouTube. You can also find all of my music pretty much on any music streaming platform. Just type in the name TeeJay The Gamer, and you will be able to find all of my remixes, all of my original music, all of my albums. And as far as projects coming up, I am actually branching out recently, and I have signed several artists underneath me who are working with me now. One of them was actually in the chat earlier, Mr. Katetsu Tokai, who just dropped his project under my label. So that one just dropped when we just finished with that one. And the next one that's actually releasing next Tuesday is actually my next artist, who is also my wife. Miss Zap Crystal is going to be dropping her project under my label. Is going to be the first female artist that I have released on my label. So look forward to that, and I'll be dropping videos every Thursday at 6:30 p.m.
Awesome. Well, thank everyone for coming on and having a fun conversation here. As for this channel, I'm still waiting for confirmation, but I'm trying to get Mini Disc Wiki on next week to talk about the mini disc, which is one of those very underrated formats that just never caught on in the States, and I don't know why, because it records like a cassette but tracks like a CD. And
I had one of those myself too.
So I'm trying to get them on. That's going to be a fun one. just dropped the third Castlevania remix for this GoldenEye CJP series. So that full soundtrack is available on the channel. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to be dropping the first track for the next round of Electronic Noise. Electronic Noise 3 Coded Poetry. So that
can't wait for that one. I enjoyed the first two very much.
The track will be coming out here soon. So other than that, again, TJ, Melee, DJ, thank you so much for coming on. And just like I say, just keep making music. Everyone, you all have a wonderful evening.